So yesterday and the day before we were looking at finding common percentages mentally. So we found 50%, 25%, 10%, 5%, 1%. Keeps cheering me that like do-do-do. So what we're going to look at today though is how we find more complicated percentages. Now, as I said to you, you can do it mentally, but we don't expect you to normally. You normally use your calculator for it, so that's what we're going to do today. So, let's have a look. Let's find 37% of 300. Okay. Now, there are two different methods that are both really the same, but you're just coming at it from a slightly different angle. So if you use method A, what you do is you do the percentage, you divide it by 100, and then you multiply it by the quantity. So that's your formula. You take the percentage, you divide that percentage by 100, and then multiply that answer by your amount. So for this particular problem, what you would do is you would do 37 divided by 100, and then you would multiply it by 300. That's right, you'd multiply it by 300. Because 37 is the percentage, you divide it by 100, that stays the same, and the quantity is 300. Okay, so have a go at that on your calculator then. 37 divided by 100 multiplied by 300. 111? Yeah, so it's 111. Okay. Now, method B is kind of the same, but we do it slightly differently. So first thing you do is you change the percentage to a decimal. Okay, and then you do the decimal multiplied by the quantity. Now, who can see what the similarity is? What's the same thing that you're doing on both of them?
So instead of dividing 37 by 100, you're just changing it to a decimal instead.
And what do you do to 37 to change it to a decimal?
Divide by 100.
You divide it by 100, don't you? So you're doing exactly the same thing. Here, you're just... One of the things that I always think is quite useful to remember about percentages is that whatever you do, there's generally 100 in the formula somewhere. So if you remember it this way, that you've got the percentage divided by 100 multiplied by the quantity, 37 divided by 100 times 300. Here though, if you just want to change the percentage to a decimal, 37% as a decimal is what? 0.37. 0.37. And then if we times the quantity, which is 300, what has the answer got to be? 111. It's got to be the same, hasn't it? Because it can't change. But do it on your calculator to prove it. 111. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Right then, so what I'm just going to leave the method there, but I'm actually just going to change... Oh, no, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so let's have 5% of 250. 5% of 250. So, looking at method A, you take the percentage, which is 5, you divide it by 100, and then you multiply that by 250. 12.5, well done. This one, you change the percentage to a decimal, but For some people, changing 5% to a decimal, they get a little bit confused with the decimal places. So that's why, if you're not sure, it's a good idea to divide by 100 rather than change it to a decimal mentally. But what is 5% as a decimal?
0.05.
Well done. 0.05. And then you times that by 250. 12.5. It has to be, doesn't it? That's right. Now, when we've been looking at percentages, you can have a percentage bigger than 100. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do 127% of 3,612. Okay? So we're going to increase 3,612 by 27%. We're going to find 127% of it. So let's have a look at method A. The percentage is 127. Now, just because it's bigger than 100, it doesn't make any difference. You still follow the formula. Divided by 100 times 3,612. So 127 divided by 100 multiplied by 3,612. Marcus?
4,587.2.
4,587.24. Very good. Okay. Was that only to two decimal places? Did you round it to two decimal places, or were there more decimal places?
No, there's only two.
What was the next one after the 4?
There's none.
Oh, okay, that's great then. Now then, here you change the percentage to a decimal, and then the decimal multiplied by the quantity. So what is 127% as a decimal, Cody?
1.27.
1.27 times 3,612. So do that on your calculator.
Yeah, same answer.
Got to be the same, hasn't it? 4587.24. Okay. So, we're going to do one that's a little bit trickier, just so that you can see which method might be simpler to use. So, obviously, if you do method B, you've got to be able to change the percentage to a decimal mentally. So what if you get something like this, though? 0.025% of 365. Now that's not quite so easy, is it? How would you change 0.025 into a decimal? Let's do this one first. Do this on your calculator. 0.25 divided by 100 multiplied by 365. What does that come to, Vaughan?
0.9125.
0.9125.
There's two zeros after the decimal.
No, not.
Right, do it. Everyone try it again. 0.25.
0.9125.
0.9125. There's no other
The reason
zeros.
that's happening is because the iPad calculator is different.
Well, no, it shouldn't happen at all.
Yeah.
So, this one then for a decimal. What is 0.25% as a decimal?
0.0025.
Yeah, so 0.0025 times 365. What's your answer then?
0.9125.
Yeah, got to be the same, hasn't it? 0.9125. Now, I personally, for one like that, would use this because the calculator is doing the converting for you. Just here, if you are very, very secure at converting percentages to decimals, you can do that. But if you're not, let the calculator do the work for you. Okay, right, can you stop there for me, Ariana? Thank you.